Section 1. Government spending and lower interest rates. The Chinese model. The Chinese economic model challenges conventional Western economic thought. It demonstrates a clear link between government spending and lower interest rates. Bloomberg analysis confirms this. Increased government spending in China has consistently resulted in lower interest rates. This relationship contradicts the traditional narrative. Western economies often see higher interest rates with increased government spending. This highlights a fundamental flaw in the Western economic model. This disconnect stems from a misunderstanding of money creation and the role of government. Western economies operate under the false premise of government budget constraints. They believe they must tax before they can spend. China understands that a sovereign government, issuing its own currency, can spend without prior taxation. This understanding allows China to inject money directly into the economy. This stimulates growth and lowers interest rates. The Chinese model exposes the limitations of Western economic thinking. It highlights the potential for government spending to drive economic growth without causing inflation. This is a crucial lesson for nations struggling with stagnant economies and high interest rates. The Chinese example provides a roadmap for a more effective and equitable economic system. Section 2. Debunking the taxation myth. Government spending does not require taxation. The notion that government spending must be funded by taxation is a pervasive myth. This misconception is perpetuated by financial institutions and their allies. They benefit from this narrative by limiting government intervention in the economy. In reality, governments that control their own currencies do not need to tax before spending. They can create money. This ability to create money is an inherent power of a sovereign government. It is not dependent on tax revenue. Taxation serves other purposes, such as controlling inflation and redistributing wealth. However, it is not a prerequisite for government spending. Understanding this is crucial for challenging the austerity measures often imposed on citizens. These measures are based on the false premise of government budget constraints. The reality is that governments can spend on essential services, infrastructure, and social programs without relying solely on taxation. By freeing themselves from this misconception, governments can unlock their potential to create a more just and equitable society. Section 3. Money creation and economic growth. The real drivers of prosperity. Economic growth is not driven by austerity and balanced budgets. It is fueled by spending and investment. Governments, unlike households, have the unique ability to create money. This power allows them to inject money directly into the economy, stimulating demand and fostering growth. When governments spend, they create new money that flows into the hands of businesses and individuals. This increased spending power translates into higher demand for goods and services. This, in turn, encourages businesses to invest, expand, and hire more workers. This cycle of spending, investment, and job creation is the engine of economic growth. The misconception that governments must operate like households, balancing their budgets and living within their means, is fundamentally flawed. This austerity mindset restricts economic growth and perpetuates inequality. By embracing their role as creators of money, governments can unlock the true potential of their economies and create a more prosperous future for all. Section 4. Inflation control without interest rate manipulation. Lessons from China and Japan. China and Japan offer compelling examples of inflation control without relying solely on interest rate manipulation. These nations understand that interest rates are not the only tool for managing inflation. They recognize the importance of a multifaceted approach that considers factors like supply chain management, targeted investment, and strategic price controls. China, for instance, has successfully managed inflation by investing heavily in infrastructure and capacity building projects. This strategic investment has increased productivity, expanded supply, and helped keep prices stable. Japan has adopted a similar approach, focusing on long-term investments in education, technology, and renewable energy to create a more resilient and inflation-resistant economy. The experiences of China and Japan demonstrate that inflation control can be achieved without resorting to the blunt instrument of interest rate hikes. By adopting a more nuanced and holistic approach, governments can manage inflation effectively while fostering sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Section 5. The fallacy of economic dictatorship, unmasking free market hypocrisy. Free market proponents often advocate for limited government intervention in the economy, claiming that the market knows best. However, this rhetoric often masks a contradictory stance. They readily embrace the idea of an economic dictatorship led by unelected central bankers. This contradiction exposes the hypocrisy at the heart of free market ideology. These unelected central bankers wield immense power over the economy, setting interest rates and controlling the money supply. Their decisions have far-reaching consequences for businesses, individuals, and the overall health of the economy. Yet they are not accountable to the public or subject to democratic oversight. This concentration of power in the hands of an unelected elite contradicts the fundamental principles of democracy. It creates a system where the interests of the wealthy and powerful are prioritized over the needs of the many. The fallacy of the free market becomes evident. It is a system rigged to benefit the few at the expense of the many. Section 6. The anti-democratic nature of free market economics, central bankers versus democracy. Free market economics, despite its claims of promoting individual liberty, often operates in an anti-democratic manner. It relies heavily on the actions of central banks, which are typically insulated from democratic processes. This reliance on unelected technocrats to manage the economy undermines the principles of popular sovereignty and accountability. Central banks, with their power to manipulate interest rates and the money supply, exert significant influence over the economy. Yet, their decisions are often made behind closed doors, without public input or transparency. This lack of democratic accountability creates a system where the interests of financial elites are prioritized over the needs of the majority. This inherent tension between free market economics and democratic principles is often overlooked. The concentration of economic power in the hands of unelected officials undermines the very foundations of a democratic society. It creates a system where economic policy is dictated by a select few, rather than being determined through open and inclusive debate. Section 7. Boom and bust cycles. The price of manipulation in Western economies. Western economies, characterized by their reliance on free market principles and central bank intervention, are inherently prone to cycles of boom and bust. These cycles are not natural phenomena. They are the direct result of policies that prioritize short-term profits over long-term stability. The manipulation of interest rates and the money supply by central banks creates artificial booms followed by inevitable busts. These cycles of economic instability have devastating consequences for individuals, families, and communities. They lead to job losses, foreclosures, and widespread economic hardship. This inherent instability is a feature, not a bug, of the current economic system. It is a system designed to benefit the wealthy and powerful at the expense of the majority. Cyclical nature of boom and bust ensures that the wealth gap continues to widen, further concentrating power and influence in the hands of a select few. Section 8. Interest rate hikes, a mechanism for wealth transfer from the poor to the rich. Interest rate hikes, often touted as a necessary tool to combat inflation, are in reality a mechanism for transferring wealth from the poor to the rich. When interest rates rise, the cost of borrowing money increases. This disproportionately impacts low and middle-income individuals and families who rely on credit for essential purchases like homes, cars, and education. Conversely, those with significant assets, such as stocks and bonds, often benefit from rising interest rates. Their investments generate higher returns, further increasing their wealth. This upward transfer of wealth exacerbates existing inequalities, creating a system where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The use of interest rate hikes as a primary tool for economic management is a clear indication of a system rigged in favor of the wealthy. It is a system that prioritizes the protection of asset values over the well-being of the majority, perpetuating a cycle of inequality and economic instability. Section 9. media complicity, propagating economic fallacies and silencing dissent, the mainstream media plays a crucial role in perpetuating the economic fallacies that underpin the current system. They act as mouthpieces for the financial elite, promoting narratives that justify policies that benefit the wealthy at the expense of the majority. This complicity in disseminating economic misinformation is essential for maintaining the status quo. The media often present complex economic issues in a simplistic and misleading manner. They rarely challenge the assumptions of the dominant economic paradigm or provide a platform for alternative viewpoints. This lack of critical analysis and diversity of perspectives creates a distorted view of the economy, one that serves the interests of the powerful. By silencing dissent and promoting a narrow range of economic ideas, the media helps to maintain a system that is fundamentally unfair and unsustainable. They create an illusion of consensus around policies that benefit the few while ignoring the real-world consequences for the majority. Section 10. Conclusion: challenging the illusion of liberal democracy. The current economic system, with its reliance on central bank intervention, boom and bust cycles, and policies that exacerbate inequality, exposes the limitations of liberal democracy. It reveals a system where economic power trumps political power, and where the interests of the wealthy elite take precedence over the needs of the many. The facade of democracy, with its elections and representative institutions, masks a deeper reality. Economic decisions, which have a profound impact on the lives of citizens, are often made by unelected officials operating in the shadows. This concentration of economic power in the hands of a select few undermines the very foundations of a truly democratic society. Challenging the illusion of liberal democracy requires exposing the economic fallacies that underpin the current system. It demands a fundamental restructuring of the economy, one that prioritizes the well-being of the many over the enrichment of the few. It is only through such a transformation that we can create a more just, equitable, and truly democratic society.